Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast, episode number 38, right here. I'm Ethan Sargent. Ayden Crowley is with me. It's a snowy afternoon here in Athens, as I'm sure it is over in Cincinnati, where Mr. Crowley is
Yep.
today. And we got a fun episode today. I've been looking forward to this one. This should be a fun one today. We've got to give a huge shout out to our one of the better, I think, if not the best Bengals reporter out there in Paul Dehner Jr. Always does great work covering the Bengals all year long, and as is tradition, here in the early parts of February, he's released his mock offseason. So we're gonna bust out our GM chops here. We're going to take our initial first stabs at what the Bengals might do. And we may well come back and revisit this over the course of the offseason, right? Especially post free agency might be a good thing to revisit if there's cuts or anything like that. There hasn't been any super noteworthy Bengals news over the last couple of days. I think the only real crazy noteworthy thing, and I guess it wasn't even really that crazy, was Troy Walters, the Bengals wide receivers coach, actually turned down an offensive coordinator interview with the Chicago Bears. Obviously, Declan Doyle is now in Baltimore with Jesse Minter as their offensive coordinator. He'll call plays for Lamar Jackson. But Troy Walters is going to stay with Cincinnati, which is great. He's one of the best wide receiver coaches in the league. So we are very happy about that, I would say. So, who wants to go first here? Do you want to take the reins, or do you want to?
Yeah, that's fine. I can go
Go
first.
ahead.
Sure, no
And
problem.
I'm just going to give you the floor. I'm going to let you. I think you should be able to do. We're testing this out. This could work. This could not work.
I
We're
actually
gonna.
had to,
Oh
I had to
yeah.
request. I had to
We're gonna
request.
allow that. We're gonna let that
Dang.
happen.
All
And
right,
then
perfect.
we're gonna let Ayden talk his way through his mock off season, and then I'm gonna talk through mine. And then at the end, we're gonna go back and we're gonna kind of put one together. I've got two. I've got a one that I would do if I were Duke Tobin, and then I've got one that I think is a little bit more likely. So we'll see. Ayden, there's a lot of
Yeah,
things going on this board. Talk me
sure.
through it.
Yeah, you can see it, right? I'm about to go full
I
COVID
can
blast
see,
mode
and it
right
should
now.
be
Okay,
recording,
cool.
so I think we're good.
All
Yes.
right, sounds good. So first things first, where did I start? For me, there were two very obvious cut candidates. And in my opinion, that's Oren Burks and that's Cody Ford. Cody Ford showed this season that he isn't able to play tackle anymore. And that was kind of one of
He can
the
catch
only
passes.
that was one of the only things I think that was keeping him around in the building was the fact that he could swing as both a guard and a tackle. As Mabel's going crazy, but that was one of the only things that was keeping him in the building. And then Oren Burks, like, it's funny, you almost forget that he was even on the team last year. So he was a very easy cut candidate as well. The TJ Slayton cut that I made. So once I got through those, I realized that in Paul Danner's assessment that DJ Reader is going to be getting about equivalent value to what a TJ Slayton cut would be. And what I wanted to prioritize this offseason for the Bengals was obviously defense, but specifically leaders on the defense. And so DJ Reader has been and will always be one of the best leaders in the locker room for this Bengals team. You think about those years, and he was always the guy who was willing to come up and talk to the media during hard times, during good times, very vocal. And so he was somebody who just made a lot of sense. And so TJ Slayton had to get cut. So with that being said, I made those decisions. And then again, if you're going to give me a Burrow restructure, I can just click one button and get $12 million. I'm going to do it. I don't think the Bengals are, but I'm going to do it. And it's the same thing with the Trey Hendrickson tag and trade, which I think is more likely than a Burrow restructure. I do think that some kind of
Yeah.
work could be done on a Trey tag and trade. The question of that would be leverage that the Bengals necessarily have, because I think it's very obvious that Trey doesn't want to be here anymore.
I think
Anyway,
what has to happen with that is the Bengals would have to communicate with another team, and that team, let's say Carolina. Let's just make it easy because that's an obvious, I mean, we'll see. But like, let's say Carolina and the Bengals would have to communicate, and Carolina would have to present a contract to Trey Hendrickson, right? They would have to give him that extension, right? That 3 or 4 year, 90 something $100 million deal, right? That's what would have to happen. And
mhm.
then everybody would sign off and the Bengals would get like some sort of compensation. So
Yeah.
we'll
Otherwise,
see.
you'd
It's
be in a
definitely a
similar.
possibility.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'd be in a similar position as like a Chiefs where they had a couple weeks with L'Jarius Sneed where they tagged him and he didn't want to be there, and then it took a little bit, and then Tennessee finally made the deal that they made. Mabel's going crazy, my dog. Anyway,
My
we're back
goodness.
home. So with that being said, that moved all the money out of the way, and we already had a lot of money to play with as is. So that just gave me even more to work with. And so then what did I prioritize? One of the first moves I made was to the defensive line. It feels like we've talked about this a lot. The Bengals have a bunch of edge twos. They don't really have an edge one. And so I went with Draymond Jones. He is from Tennessee. He's somebody who I think can play both outside and in. And I think that's going to be very valuable for this Bengals team because, as you can see with my mock offseason, I kind of punted on the interior defensive line, which is not necessarily something I was thrilled about doing. But I think that just goes to show you how bad the interior defensive line market is. Now, if you click this
Not
and you
good.
can, yeah, you can come down to D tackle. John Franklin Myers, incredible. I mean, he's in the greatest position any free agent could be in ever, because the positional value is super scarce this offseason, and he's by far one of the best players in the National Football League at that position. That's just never going to happen. $17 million is way too much for the Bengals. But having Draymond Jones be somebody who can play on the outside and on the inside, I think will be valuable, especially if somebody like Chris Jenkins doesn't really have that third year jump that we saw someone like Miles Murphy took. I also wanted to have Miles Murphy and Shamar Stewart have a little bit more runway, because I think, at least in Miles Murphy's case, I think he showed enough from you this season that he deserves another season to kind of go out there and do it. Moving on, linebacker position. I think we're kind of in agreement here that Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter specifically Knight, showed enough last season to earn a little bit of a longer leash. With that being said, they can't be the only two out there. So I went and got Caden Ellis from the Falcons. He is somebody who, again, is versatile and I think would work very well with our scheme. We saw Demetrius Knight get mauled sometimes when he was having to play edge because that was just a position he's not familiar with. Caden Ellis did that a lot in Atlanta this season. He's somebody who moved from off-ball linebacker to edge at times, and I think that's a piece that would make a lot of sense for the Bengals, and just in terms of what Al Golden likes to do. So with that being said, too, with that money, with the Burrow restructure and everything, my mom just got home, so Mabel's really happy. With the Burrow
Nice.
restructure and the money that is available now, I went ahead and extended DJ Turner. I extended Dax Hill. We got those two out of the way. We don't have to worry about those anymore. I did the same thing with Chase Brown. Those are just, in my opinion, no brainers that you can kind of get out and get ahead of and do. Um, will the Bengals do it? Question of the day. Um,
That's the question.
so those two set corner don't have to worry about it. Moving on to the secondary, this is where the draft comes in. I drafted Caleb Downs, and you see, I don't have him playing safety. I have him playing that kind of like slot safety hybrid position. Think Kyle Hamilton, think Nick Emmanwori, that kind of big nickel that you see a lot of teams doing because in the NFL, offenses are going so much more to 12 and 13 personnel. You kind of need a bigger option there for that. So that's why I went ahead and put Caleb Downs there because I think he's somebody who could play that position. CB4, I signed Chidobe Awuzie. Again, I need leaders. I need veterans on this defense. As we saw last year, there were none. So I went ahead and got him. I don't expect him to play a lot, but as just a guy in the locker room that I think made a lot of impressions in his time in Cincinnati. So I went ahead and did that. And then I had this money left over. I wanted a playmaker. I wanted a difference maker on defense. And that's why I got Jaquan Brisker, someone who can just be around the ball. He's a freak. He is always involved in plays. It seems like he's a game wrecker. And I feel like that's what the Bengals have been missing, that kind of X factor on defense that puts them up over the edge. So I signed him. I had the money. I'm gonna do it. And then Battle obviously being the second option at safety. Flacco is just he's a great story. I think he's too expensive, 5 million, and I just don't see him being a backup in Cincinnati. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I went with Case Keenum. I went with Case Keenum. And then obviously Reisner extension. I flirted with the Orlando Brown Jr. cut. Just because I think you want to get out ahead of the decline that he's shown in recent years. But in this offseason and in this moment with the Bengals and how much work they have to do on defense versus how stationary and how stable this offense is right now, I just don't make it doesn't make sense to do it now. And then as far as the rest of the draft goes, I don't think Lee Hunter will be there in the second
God, I
round.
hope so. Huh.
It would be awesome if he was. Again, if I'm given the option, I'm gonna take him. And then Isaiah World, first of all time name, Isaiah World. Yeah, sign me up. At Oregon with Dan Lanning, he's also like 6'8". He just
Big,
profiles like
big
a
body,
Bengal.
big hunks.
So that's the kind of position that they love. So all in all, that's what I did. That was kind of a ramble. But I was happy with how everything went. I still think wide receiver three could get better. So I draft Jacoby Lane out of USC. Maybe we'll see what you get. But I don't think you can invest too much into that yet. But leadership, versatility, and playmakers were kind of what I was looking for on the defensive side of the ball. And I think I accomplished that pretty well. I was pretty
Yeah.
happy with how this went.
I'd agree. If this is how it shakes out, I'm pretty happy, right? I think that there's a lot of good about this. And I didn't draft a slight spoiler for I didn't draft Caleb Downs just because I think that about 95% of people right now are just like saying, oh, well, if he's there at 10, if he's there at 10, like I don't want to, I didn't want to shoehorn myself into that. So as I'll pop my screen up here,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Aiden, I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that draft or that off season. So okay, are we rolling? There we are. Okay, don't ignore the amount of tabs. Just ignore it. So here we go. With this with my go. As you see, I have also gone heavy on the defensive side. We will get to that in just a second. Let's start off with the cuts. Same reasons with Ayden on Burks and Slayton. Um, the BJ Hill cut is probably my most controversial move of this entire thing, right? I love BJ Hill. I think he's great. Um, and the nose tackle position in this is probably the weakest point of this Bengals team. If you look at this and just zoom out, it is absolutely the weakest link, right? I think I'm a little higher on McKinley Jackson than a lot of people are. Um,
I was gonna let you get through it, but I saw McKinley Jackson there as a starter on
he's
the Bengals in 2026, and that scares the heck out of
Yeah, I think, look, and you see, obviously, you see who's alongside him at defensive tackle with my first round pick, who's going to be Peter Woods out of Clemson in this situation. And I think that you have the potential for growth and a lot of improvement. And then obviously, Chris Jenkins, again, that's probably the weakest point of this team, but we'll come back to that in a second. The rest of this cuts, I really think Sample's done. I know that that's kind of something where it's just like he's been here a long time and he does one thing really, really well, but I think his time is up. I think that the Bengals and a lot of that may well hinge on Eric All
I was
looking
gonna
okay,
say I would
coming
agree
back.
with you. I would agree with you if Eric All Jr. is healthy, but I just don't think he
But
is.
obviously, he is very much a work in progress with the knees. We hope he's okay. We hope he comes back. But I think for this purpose, I wanted to splash. As you can see, there are some big splashes. So let's talk through because there's a big splash at each level. That's my thing. Because me and Aiden are I think that there needs to be a difference maker in every spot. And I think the Bengals in this situation go out and get a difference maker at every spot. So offense, real quick. Jimmy G is fun, and we have the most attractive quarterback room in the entire league. Um, Chase Brown extension, make that happen. I think that is another easy layup this offseason that the Bengals should do. Same with DJ and Dax. And then Reisner as well. I think all of those are easy. I think Reisner could be like even like a multi. I think Reisner and Brown. I think all of them should be multi-year deals. I think those guys are all good parts of last year's team that should be extended. And then obviously the rest of it is pretty much unchanged. You'll see wide receiver three. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Um, let's go to the defense. Obviously, a lot happening here. We start off with a man who's playing on Sunday, Boye Mafe from Seattle. This guy, out of Minnesota was drafted very highly. I think that number is going to be higher in real free agency than it is on this. He is somebody that the stats aren't like holy smokes like crazy, but he's a difference maker. And that's really what I'm looking for. And we'll really talk about it with this next guy at linebacker. This team needs difference makers, especially on the defensive side of the football. Boye Mafe is a difference maker. I think you add him, Mafe, or him, Murphy, and Stewart, I should say, gives you three very good edges. And I flirted with the idea of bringing Joseph Osai back, but when you look at Mafe to Osai, and yes, Osai will probably not cost that much, which again, we'll get to that. But I think that when you look at the positive to negative of that, the money was there. That was actually the last pick I made here. That was like I had that money left over. I was like, let's make that happen. Let's get an edge rusher that can generate consistent pressure off the outside. And it's a very similar move to what the Bengals did a few years ago with Trey Hendrickson, coming off of a rookie contract, off of a big time prove it fourth year, right? Actually, I think is Mafe a second round pick? I can't remember exactly
I
when he
think
was
he was a
drafted.
second round guy. Yeah.
But obviously Trey Anderson was a third round pick at a Florida Atlantic, right? Same scenarios drafting wise, where those draftees get those 4 year deals, and it's prove it time in that fourth year. And obviously Trey Hendrickson proved it, got that big extension, and then proved it, and then some with the Bengals. So yeah, Boye Mafe, I think he'll be a great part of this team should he come in. Two more big swings. Let's go to linebacker one. This is the funnest thing I think you could possibly do for the Bengals this offseason. Devin Lloyd is a goddamn freak. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. This guy moves at the speed of light. Like he is so quick, so twitchy. He like just go watch some Jags games this year. A lot of people probably did. He flies. I mean, this guy just moves at the speed of light. His instincts, which is something I think Knight and Carter really struggled with this year, are so good. He knows where to be. He had what, five, six interceptions at the linebacker spot this year, which reminds you of somebody else who the Bengals used to have, who actually led linebacker interceptions over the last 3 years, Logan Wilson. So I think Devin Lloyd is just, I look, that number may also be small. I think some teams are going to throw a lot of money at Devin Lloyd this year. Look, we're operating in these parameters. This is what I hope the Bengals do. I've got $400,000 left over. I think the Bengals will have much more than that, unfortunately. So again, Devin Lloyd, superstar in the making. You saw it really these last 2 years in Jacksonville. He is somebody that I think even the Jags have kind of acknowledged as a team that look, he's played too well. He's played himself out of our price range. So look, if the Bengals are willing to pony up and pay him that big time money, I'm all for it, right? I do think for an alternative, but we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into our full team scheme thing, is that if the Bengals opt to not go into free agency, phenomenal off-ball linebacker draft, one of the best in years. So they could very well invest one of these draft picks into a linebacker. However, in this case, they just spend the money rather than a draft pick. So you could flip that either way. Let's go to the secondary now. You got DJ Turner and Dax Hill both on extensions. Bringing in Kobe Bryant, another guy that's playing in the Super Bowl this week.
Cincinnati guy.
Notice something? What?
Cincinnati guy.
He is a Cincinnati guy, right? Was part of that electric duo with Sauce Gardner back in 2021. Um, he has really played at a high level since being drafted to Seattle, right? He actually won the Jim Thorpe Award over Sauce Gardner that season in Cincinnati because it was the interceptions. He had so many picks because nobody threw to Sauce.
That was the thing. Like Kobe Bryant at UC was the guy that like we're not going to throw to Sauce. Who in their right mind is going to throw towards Sauce Gardner? So we're going to try and throw at Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant said, "All right, bet, throw to me." And he
And
was
I
locked
think,
down.
honestly, in this scenario, right, you don't have Caleb Downs here. And I think Bryant would kind of play in that kind of role, right? He is that kind of twitchy, rangy defender you can move him around a little bit. You can play him in the slot. You can move him to safety potentially. He's kind of done that in Seattle, right? Obviously, Seattle has Nick Eamon-Wari, who has done that to an insanely high level this season. But Kobe Bryant's been just as good, really a big part of what's been a phenomenal secondary, right? Because obviously they're insanely well coached, but Bryant has done a really good job of that. And then you'll see also in that draft pick, I think you get a steal in the fourth round behind him in D'Angelo Ponds at Indiana. But we'll get to the draft in just a second. Then our final big swing, another Cincinnati guy. I want to know. I'm gonna look it up now. Where Brian Cook went to high school, unless you know off the top of your head, Aiden.
Oh, not off the top of my head.
He's a Cincinnati guy. He went to Mount Healthy.
Mount
There you
Healthy.
go. That
All the
is a
great athletes go to Mount Healthy, I swear.
Went to Mount Healthy. born and raised in Cincinnati.
So that's where David
He,
Montgomery went to high school. Anyway,
yep.
continue. Sorry.
He literally has Paycor Stadium in his Twitter bio. I don't think the sales pitch is too difficult for Brian Cook. The money obviously has to be right, but this is another playmaker, right? He is another guy who just finds his way to the football. And that's a thing that I'm looking for on this defense right now is they didn't have enough guys that were twitchy, that were trying to make plays. You saw it with number 22 last season, where it feels like he was afraid to make plays as opposed to heading towards the football. I think Brian Cook is kind of that same swing, but you're paying him a bit more than obviously you would be paying a Stone. But I think Brian Cook is a guy that you plug and play right next. And I think, again, I've talked about this a couple of times over these last couple of weeks. I think Jordan Battle just needs that partner in crime. And I think there's a great player there. He's shown the flashes, right? I think that you have a guy that is that kind of in that vein of what I'm talking about. He is a playmaker. Problem is he hasn't had that help next to him, and he gets, I think, scapegoated a little bit, sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly, because there are plays that he's missed, there are plays he hasn't made. I think you give him a guy like Brian Cook next to him. Again, notice also all of these guys that I'm picking up are coming into their either fourth or fifth year in the league, right? I went young in free agency, which the Bengals tend to like to do. So, again, this is speculative. I also did the tag and trade. I also did the restructure, right? But this is my mock off season. This isn't the Bengals mock off season. We're going to do that in a second. So, the draft picks, Peter Woods in the first round. Again, a guy that I think I might be a little bit of a reach at 10. I don't know. His stock is weird. I think we'll learn a lot about him at the combine. With the measurables. I think a lot of people will ask some questions of him in those interviews, right? What happened over the last year or two? Why'd the production dip so much from sophomore to junior to senior year? Obviously there's still a very, very talented player in there and one that I think will be very successful in the NFL, but this is a pick that could well happen with a trade down potential, even though I don't think this is a big trade down kind of draft. So again, I think in that first round, if you're the Bengals, you want as many offensive players going as possible. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson. If somebody goes up and gets a quarterback, you're celebrating, you're dancing. If somebody goes and gets like a Ty Simpson or something
I
like
don't think
that,
that's happening.
you're loving that. The two O linemen who sneaky could be a Bengals pick here. Check in on Myalga and Fano. If they're there, don't rule out the Bengals taking them. But if you want those guys to go, right? Because that opens up the board for downs. That opens up the board for guys like maybe a Sonny Styles if they decide to go linebacker, right? It opens up the board for a Peter Woods potentially. So then we go back to back offensive picks in rounds 2 and 3. Jeremy Bernard is a fun football player, man. He is obviously going back to Bama for a receiver after the last one is a choice, but you look no further than that catch he made against Oklahoma in the college football playoff as a evidence of what he can bring to this team. I think he will work in that wide receiver 3 kind of role. It might take him some time to get some snaps and some reps, but I think that I do think that they're going to invest one of these 4 picks into a receiver. I don't know where it would, but probably not the first round pick, of course. But I do think that one of these picks will be invested into a receiver. I think they're going to want some new talent in that room, especially with Burton leaving, right? They were nothing against Mitchell Tinsley, right? He's a great player, but they were throwing an undrafted free agent out there for a lot of the second half of the season. So I think they're going to want to raise the floor. And again, I love Mitchell Tinsley. I hope he stays. But
He signed an
I think they're
extension.
going to
He is here.
what?
He signed an extension. Like he.
Yeah, no. And I'm saying he will stay, but I'm saying like you can all respect in the world of Mitchell Tinsley. You can get better than Mitchell Tinsley is what I'm saying here. And I love Mitch. Don't take that as a slight. So yeah, Jeremy Bernard. You could go again. And that's the thing about this draft as well. Receiver is deep late. Really deep late. Like there will be some great options in rounds 2, rounds 3, round 4. So keep an eye on that. Jake Slaughter out of Florida. This was a guy that had some first round buzz earlier in this draft process. Obviously, Florida had a very poor year on the college football field. So that kind of tanks your stock a little bit when your team sucks and you don't really give DJ Lagway all that much leeway in the backfield, unless DJ Lagway's throwing it to the defense. Um, But again, I like the upside here. I think he's a center that's played some guard. I like the versatility. The Bengals tend to like that versatility as well. They've drafted a lot of guys that can play multiple positions along the offensive line. I think they value that for their depth. So I think Slaughter would probably again. I brought back Cody Ford in this scenario, but you could well cut Cody Ford after this draft pick. Like that might happen. I don't know. Then the round three pick for Trey Hendrickson. Deni Dennis Sutton is a fun football player, right? Again, I you want explosive plays, you want explosive players. Deni Dennis Sutton brings that, right? Obviously, that Penn State lineage at edge rusher is something, right? You think about Micah Parsons, you think about Abdul Carter, and all those guys who have been successful in the NFL, right? And I like a guy here in the third or fourth round that kind of has the production and the upside. I think you could get something here in the third or fourth round. So keep an eye on Dennis Sutton later in the draft. And then D'Angelo Pons is a steal in the fourth round. I don't think he'll be there, but if he is, awesome.
His size scares me, but he doesn't play like his size, so
Well, that's the thing is I think if this is how it shakes out for the Bengals, Pons almost fits perfectly in this defense because he kind of sits in there. He'll play in some of the dime and the nickel packages. He won't be asked to be a CB1 or a CB2 right off the jump. He'll be asked to make some key plays on like he'll be like a third down specialist, right? He'll come in and maybe you'll get some maybe even if they draft Caleb Downs early in the draft, you get some awesome sets with both Pons and Downs on the field. Like, can you imagine what they could do, how creative they could get on defense? Now, if that actually happens, you're actually expecting your defensive coordinator to get creative, which we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of my long and short. I think this is very speculative. I will say that much. I hope it happens, but I think the chances of the Bengals actually signing Devin Lloyd are pretty close to zero, unfortunately.
yeah, I think overall, I like you said, I really like the moves that you made. I like the difference makers that you have. The one thing I will say, if I could push back a little bit, look at the four teams that were in the NFC in the AFC Championship. Look at their interior defensive line PFF grades, specifically their pass rush win rates.
Mhm.
They were 1 through 4. I think that's where the league is going. I think you need interior help now. Did I necessarily go in and make some difference makers? I just don't think it's there this offseason. And I think you
It's
almost have to
it's not a good market for it. And
no.
and that goes for both the draft and free agency.
Right.
Like the
I think
draft does
everywhere
not
I think
have some like Woods is probably the best prospect
yeah.
in
And
terms of that.
I think everywhere else where the Bengals have needs this offseason, it is a deep class, like in terms of free agent and draft. Like I think their needs and who's out there lines up really well with them right now. I think they probably feel like they're in a pretty good spot. But interior defensive line just isn't that way. And you're gonna basically have to bank on what happened in 2021 and hope for the same kind of result. Because you think back to that team that made it to the Super Bowl, their interior defensive pass rush was not great either, but everybody else around them was good enough to where it didn't really matter. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. But I like it. Difference makers for sure. Devin Lloyd. I love Devin Lloyd. There's no chance he's going to be in stripes, but I like him.
I do think the Bengals may well still look into that offseason, or excuse me, into that linebacker market, right? Like they may well try
For sure.
and bargain buy again, which
But
I
we're
would
gonna,
love.
as we're probably gonna do right here, it's gonna
Yep.
be I think their linebackers coach for the Bengals described it as needing a caddy for
Mm.
Knight and Carter. They need somebody who knows the ropes, and there's a bunch of those. Demario Davis sticks out. Obviously, Bobby Wagner is a guy who's
This
played
was
over
what I think the Bengals will do.
Colonial football.
We're gonna do ours together. Look who linebacker one is.
Yep.
I think that's a very distinct possibility. So let
Yep.
me well, if I can get this out of the way.
Got too many tabs, Ethan. Too many
Yeah, I have
tabs.
way too many tabs to ignore it. All right, so we're going to start here. 35,000 or $35 million. That number is, by the way, going to go up. This was made before
Yeah.
the salary cap news came out. So this number is going to go up. Let's start off with cuts. And again, we got to think here we're not thinking us, we're thinking Duke, Mike, and the crew. We got 10 minutes to bang this out.
Yeah, we gotta go quick.
So let's start with the cuts. I think Burks gets cut.
Yep.
Um, and then do you think anyone else realistically gets cut?
I really do think Cody Ford gets cut this offseason.
Okay. I think that's a distinct possibility too. I don't think they cut Slayton. I think
No.
they'll just eat that. So I think then we put in Slayton at nose tackle, right? QB2, do we want to go crazy? Do we want to do anything wild? Do you know what? Another thing that I have been saying that I think is distinctly possible. I'm gonna put bargain replacement because I think they draft a quarterback. I think that in the fifth or sixth round, like I'm thinking like a this name is going to make people shudder. Drew Aller or something like that in like the fifth or sixth
I,
round.
my only hesitation with that would be recent. The recent past has showed us that Burrow needs a good backup. Like he just does. And he needs somebody who
Right.
can play.
So then
We
do
don't
they invest in one of the other guys? What do you think?
I I think around that three. I think Case Keenum, Jimmy
We'll
Garoppolo,
go
Sam Howell,
Case.
that group
We'll go
makes a lot of
Case.
sense.
We'll go Case. Do you think the Chase Brown extension happens this offseason?
I do not.
All right.
We got to be quick,
Um,
but I'm going to try and keep it concise. I do not think it happens.
no, I see. I think it's such a layup, and it still probably won't happen. RB2, is it just Samaje again, or
Yep.
do they go with somebody else here?
No, I think it's Samaje. Again, I think your offense is set. I do not think they touch pretty much any of
So
those guys.
let's just
It's
bang this all out
Yoshi,
then.
it's Gesicki, it's
Gesicki,
it's Orlando, it's Ted.
Harris.
I do
No,
think the Reisner extension gets done.
that's
I
one
do.
thing. Yep. Reisner, Mims. So they cut Ford. Do you think let's go Bobby Hart. $1. Um,
I think they draft. I think they draft a
yeah, so we'll
tackle. I
leave
think
that
they
blank.
yeah.
Like I like that Isaiah World pick that you made. Like I honestly will just pencil that in for the third
Yep.
round pick here.
I mean, he's 6'8". He's the most stereotypical Bengals offensive line draft prospect in the world. He is Orlando Brown. He is Amarius
Yeah,
Mims.
he's a big
Copy
boy,
paste.
big
Yep.
fella. Then IOL 4, I mean,
I think
might as
it's
well just be
scary.
Rivers, right?
Yep.
All right, here's where the real fun begins.
Hmm.
Let's actually before we jump into that, do they restructure Burrow or do they tag and trade? Nope, no on either. I think I'm with you on that, unfortunately.
I I I do think the Trey thing is more likely. I think a
Yes.
tag and trade with Trey is more likely. I think for this exercise, we'll probably just do without it. But I wouldn't be shocked if a tag and trade with Trey happens this offseason.
Okay.
But the
So,
Burrow thing, forget about it.
do they bring in a free agent edge rusher? I think they do. I think they
Yes.
bring in one. So I
Mhm.
think what we're going to do is we're going to put Miles Murphy in the two. We're going to put Shamar Stewart in the three. Who do you realistically think? You've got 33 million to play with. Who do they bring in here from this list? Or is it somebody else? Or is it a draft pick?
I think it's a guy like Chase on for them. I
Yeah.
think it's a
I
guy
was
that
thinking
is
either one of these two was going to be
it's
my pick, either
or
Quiddy Pay or
Epinesa.
Quinn Hutchins.
Epinesa makes a lot of sense just given his age and the amount of football that he's played and his price point. But I personally like Chase on more. And then you get him at the same price. So that's why I would lean that way. But that's just
I'm
me.
in. All right. So defensive tackle, I think we'll probably go BJ.
Yep.
Um, I think before we do the linebackers and secondaries, who do the Bengals draft in the first round now? Do they draft Caleb Downs? Do they draft somebody like Sonny Styles? Do they draft? And obviously, again, this is such a quaint exercise, but what do we think?
Uh, the the thing about this draft and where the Bengals sit right now, and knock on wood, I don't think they can do a lot of harm with their pick. I
No,
think there's guys that can fall to them that you feel pretty good about. But I guess in the first round, if we're walking through this exercise, Peter Woods, I think makes a lot of sense for them. I liked that pick that you had. I think Caleb Downs makes a lot of sense for them. For this exercise, I just think given the D tackle depth in free agency and the rest of the draft, I think Peter Woods probably is the safe pick to do.
by the way, both of these picks, first round disasters. I'm just saying.
McDonald is such a Pittsburgh Steeler, huh?
I love McDonald. Taking him at 10 would be a disaster.
Yeah.
All right, so we will move him. Let's just put him here. Let's do that.
Sorry, Chris Jenkins, you haven't
Sorry,
shown
Chris.
anything
All
through two
right,
years. Figure
so
that out.
what do they do at linebacker now? We got 5 minutes left. Do they bring in a Demario Davis to anchor that? Do you think they bring in maybe like an Alex Anzalone potentially? I could see that happening. Matt Milano is okay, but he's really old. Um, a lot of these. more expensive ones are a lot younger, right? Devin Bush, kind of reclamation project after an initial bust in Pittsburgh, came back at a pretty good year in Cleveland. Nakobe Dean has kind of always been second fiddle in Philly. I think he'll want to start. Both of these guys are going to command starting money. Um, and then Wagner is a husk. I don't know what. I don't know. I don't know. Do you think it's
But he's
Demario
unk. He's
Davis?
unk. I
He
think
is.
Demario Davis makes a lot of sense. I really like Alex Singleton. As far as like what the Bengals would do, he's a good bargain. He's done a lot for Denver this season. He's versatile. He's somebody that I think can accomplish a lot for you on the field. He feels like a Bengals signing. I think Demario Davis, just given his age and what they want, makes sense.
Yeah. So then I put the two young guys behind him there. Cornerback room, either extension, Dax, DJ, do they get either of them done this offseason?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. Maybe that's a
Which
bold take.
one? Or
I
both?
think DJ. I think
Okay.
Dax, no.
Okay.
Only because I feel like you need to see it one more time with Dax. He's proven a lot, but still coming off that injury.
So then, how about in this scenario, why don't we do this? And I'm going to ask you what you think about this.
Oh, if he's there in the
Yeah.
second round, sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
I think
surprised if
that
he
makes
goes
a lot
back.
of sense with the way this is fallen.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back end of round one.
He could sneak in there. But look, we're gonna do that for all intents
I,
and
I'm
purposes.
I'm I'm in.
CB4, do you think they go get another corner? Do you think they go what do they do?
Let's do safety first. Let's get the starter out of the
Okay.
way, and then we'll see what we have
So let's
left.
do battle. Put
Yep.
battle in. Then I think you've got some money to play with here.
I this feels like a spot they can make a splash, and I feel like they want to make a splash. I like Cameron Curl. Oh my gosh, Cameron Curl from
Hmm.
LA. I think that makes a lot of sense, and we have the budget for it. We have the money.
I'm okay with that. He made that huge pick at the end of the game against Chicago. Um, the thing about like I love Jaquan Brisker here. I don't think Jaquan Brisker leaves Chicago. I just don't see
Yeah,
that happening.
I
So
really like Jaquan Brisker because he is a dog in every
yeah,
sense of the world. Word,
I
he is a
agree.
dog.
So now we got, oh wait, no, that's the wrong thing. CB4, I
Yeah, like
think,
3 million to
honestly, I
spend.
think they could re-sign Jalen Davis. I think that's a
I
possibility.
don't hate it. Does that
Um,
put us in the red? Oh no, we're not in the red.
we're not in the red. Somehow we've used it. And then
And
we
by the
got a fourth
Cincinnati
round pick.
Bengals standards.
They've gone D tackle, safety, offensive tackle. What position do you want to go for here?
I like wide receiver. I really do.
And we got some options. We got Omar Cooper out of Indiana, Jacoby Lane, CJ Daniels. Again, the depth in this draft is really good.
Mhm.
Zach Branch, I think he'll go way before that. Um, Dejon Stribling.
The problem with Zachariah Branch is that he's like a gadget guy, and gadget
Yeah.
guys don't really go high in NFL
I,
draft.
in my Bengals mock, I took Stribling because I think Stribling is the kind of mold of receiver that they're looking for because you don't need a one or a two. You
Hmm.
need that guy that can be that third option, beat a linebacker in man coverage, right? Sit in a zone and make a play. That's why I think Stribling would be a pick here.
I don't
But
mind it.
there you have it. There's your
Bang.
screen cap. Take your
We just
screen cap.
became, yep, we
I'm gonna take
became
a
Duke
screen cap
Tobin.
so that we can make that the thumbnail.
If only it was that easy. Just click some buttons and cut some
Yep.
people and move on. Instead, we have months
Yep.
and months of all these things drug out.
Yep. So we nailed it time wise. We're in our last minute, so that'll wrap things up. There's your first. We may well do that again later once we get past free agency and once we see what the money and there may well be more money involved because the cap went up. So keep that in mind as well. But that'll do it for this edition of the Junk Fever Podcast. Frank Crowley, I've been Ethan Sargent. We will see you next week. Have a good one.